And Gail. Gail was unable to be here today, so I'll just be doing the workshop. So I think I know everybody, but I'm Mark Boots-Ebenfield. I direct the Center for Teaching and Innovation. And I do a lot of workshops like this with Gail Rankin from ITS, and we always combine and put these together. You know, two heads are always better than one. So this is a page in Canvas, and really what we're going to talk about in terms of beautifying your Canvas course is using these pages in order to design. Other than removing these buttons from the side, there's not a lot you can do with those buttons. If you're not using them, the one thing I'd suggest is that you remove them. Does everybody know how to remove the buttons? Anybody not know how to remove the buttons? So as a faculty member, you're always going to see them, right, sort of grayed out. So I'm not using any of these, but I can look at student view and see. So if you go to settings, and you click on the navigation tab, if you drag any of these buttons, like I'm going to take grades and drag them below this line, that means that that will not show up for students. Then what I have to do is make sure I hit save. And these computers are kind of slow. And if I click on student view, you can see for the students, it reduces the number, the clutter on the side. So if there's anything you're not using in your course, I'd suggest removing it. That in itself helps to beautify the course because there's not a whole lot of clutter. But we can't change the color and look of these. So if you want to really make your course beautiful, it's within the Pages section. So what we're going to work on today, I'm going to be Gail in the beginning. Peter, come on in, set up on a computer, and if you can open up to a Canvas course. So I'm going to do just an overview of pages, talk about images and tables and lengths to make sure we're all set and know how to do those. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use an online service called Picmonkey. It's just a picture editing tool, and we're going to work on banners, right? And that's what we guarantee to get through as part of this workshop. And then depending on time, all right, and how fast we're moving, we'll then do either these buttons, right, or a badge, depending on what you guys want to do. We may be able to do it all, so this page is sort of a demo page. I wouldn't really have any page. I don't think this is beautiful, in case you think my aesthetics is off. This is just sort of a demo to show you the different things that we're doing. So here's the banner, right? And then this is a series of buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4 buttons. And then this is a badge. And this is just an image using right align. And these are held in place by a table. It's just an invisible table, and that's what you pretty much have to do within Canvas in order to position things on the page, right? So we'll talk about how to do those. This is actually a table inside a table, is how that's done. Okay? So let's just make sure. I told you we'd have a soft start, and everybody's got a page where they can work, and you're logging in. Mm-hmm. All right. So if you just want to go into a Canvas course that you can edit and open up a page within that. A blank page is probably, that's what I'm going to do. So and what's on here? Yeah, existing course is fine, because so I'm going to click on pages, and what I'm going to do is if you're in pages, if you click on View All Pages, right, and you can see that you can have pages that aren't published. So what you're doing right now, your students won't be able to see, even if you're working in a course that's published, right? So I'm going to add a page, and by default, when you add a page, that page is not published. Students can't see it, so don't worry about the students logging in and seeing a half-finished page. Okay. So, we're going to put in the banner a bit later. Let's just make sure first everybody can do just a link, and we'll put in an image and do left align. So does everybody here know how to do, because I did say this is for people that already know how to basically use Pages. Does everybody know how to do a link in Pages?
You mean a link to a website?
A link to anything.
Yes.
Anybody not know how to put a link into the page? Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in, please visit the home page of Salem State before starting this course. Okay. I'm never good at thinking creatively on my feet, so I have something really fantastic like, and I'll blow it up a little bit, make sure everybody can see it. All right. So please visit the home page of Salem State before starting this course. So I can highlight that, okay? And then I go up to the link icon, looks like a couple of chains, like a chain link fence, right? Right? So I click on that chain. And when I do that, if I have a complicated website, I'd copy the URL, right, from up here and then paste it in. But since I know Salem State's, I can just paste that in, salemstate.edu, and say insert link. And you'll see it turn that yellow, and that means it's linked it, right? And so now I have a link. Now you see that the text is in blue. You can also link, right, using this side, to anything within your course. So the next thing I might say is, please join the welcome discussion and then start the first module. Okay, so now I've put two things in here. Please join the welcome discussion. So I'm going to highlight welcome discussion. And in this case, what I want to do is link to something in the course. So I'm going to click over on the right-hand side on discussions, right? And I have one called welcome. And I click on that. And when I click on it, again, you'll see it glow yellow, right? And now it's linked to the welcome discussion. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Highlight first module, go down to modules, right? And I'm going to click on welcome as the first module, okay? So you can put in links to external sites like Salem State, or you can link to anything within your course by linking to things over here on the right side. And that works with any of the, right, the wiki pages, the assignments, the discussions. If you have files, it works exactly the same way. And part of my plan is to get some text in here, so when I put in the image, I can show you that it wraps. So if I have a syllabus in here, I'm not entirely sure I do, but I'll link to anything in here. So I'll just pretend that this document, this is a syllabus, click on it, and the same thing happens. So it doesn't matter whether it's a link within the course or a file or an external website, the same thing happens. It'll glow yellow, and then you'll have the link. Okay? So that's links. The other thing is putting images within the course. And the easiest way to put images within the course is somewhat backwards. Because if you click up here on the image, the first thing you always want to do is put the cursor where you want the image to be. If you click up here on image, the choices it's going to give you is a URL, right? So you'd have to put in the location of the image on the web. Or if you have a Flickr account, you can retrieve it off of Flickr. Or it's going to ask you where is it in Canvas. But you'll notice there's no upload button in here. So if I don't already have it in Canvas, right, then I can't put it in. So what I like to do is I put the cursor where I want the image to be, and I go over to Images over here on the right-hand side. Right, go over to Images. And then you now have the chance to upload an image. So now I'll choose the file. Right, I'm going to choose this, and it's a huge image. And I know it's a huge image. So I chose it, but then the second step is to click on Upload. Right. This might take a second. Okay. So, and this is what happens if you upload a tremendously humongous image. It'll take up the entire page. If I click on it, I then get what we used to call the marching ants around it, this bounding box with little squares. And if you position your cursor over the little squares, you see how the cursor changes? So it becomes a double arrow. I can then click and drag and reduce the size of the image. And I always drag from the corner, because when you drag from the corner, you keep the aspect ratio the same. If I drag from the top or the side, I'm going to mush the image. So now the next thing is, in order to position the image on the page, what I want to do is, once the image is highlighted, I want to click on Left Align. And normally when you left align, right, what happens is the text will wrap around it. I'll click on Right Align to see what happens, and it's not doing it for me. That does happen sometimes. I'm going to hit Save, see what it looks like. Where's my image? That's interesting. I haven't had that happen before.
And you hit save, correct? I also want to go on that.
Yeah, because I did all of this right before I hit save, so nothing would be there if.
Okay, I was just
yeah.
No, because I didn't see that last part.
I'll try it with a smaller image just to see if it's a happier. There we go. It may have been because it was a very large image, it wasn't happy. So that one, I just hit the right align, and you see the text wrapped around it. Hit left align, maybe now it'll select it. Left. Yeah, it's not wrapping left as well as I'd like. All right. So you can hit left or right align, and most times the text will then wrap around the image. Okay. But that brings up the next point. So we wanted to make sure we did images and tables and links. So now I'm going to edit, and I want to show you a couple of things. First is, if I click on this image and it's highlighted, that image can then become a link. Okay? So at this point, if I was to click on anything within the course over here, I'm not entirely sure why you would do this, but let's just go with it for fun. And if I clicked on assignment list, right, that should, it keeps going to first module, but that should create, this should now be a link. I was working with the with the buttons yesterday. Or if I go up here and click on the link, I can put in yeah, and it's just being mean to me today. I'm not sure why. Anyways, 99% of the time, you click on it and you turn it into, right, that image can be a link. We'll do that with the buttons once we put the buttons in, but I'm not sure what's happening with this computer right now. All right. I'm going to hit save, and I'm actually going to go off of pages and come back to it, because sometimes when things aren't working well, leaving pages and coming back to pages helps. All right. Okay. So the last thing I want to do is to put in a table and use that table in order to arrange things on the page. So I'm going to insert a table. And for this one, I'm going to have it 2 columns, and I'm just going to put in a single row. And so you'll notice, right, there's 2 columns, 1 row, and I'm going to have no border. And say insert. Okay. Now it gives us this little table over here, but what you can do is click and drag and get into the table itself, and you can position the text that's already on the page. Right? Highlight, click, hold the mouse button down, and drag it in. Right, so then you're arranging everything on the page. You can get more fine-tuned by then putting a table within these different cells, but generally I start with a 2-column table. There's 2 main ways to organize materials in Canvas: modules and pages. So in here, what you notice, I just put the information such as linking to discussions and linking to first module and please read the syllabus. Yeah. So you can use pages to organize all of your course materials. Okay. You can, the page is basically a web page, and you can put anything at all in there. You can put movies, images, link to documents. So this could be like the main organizational principle of your course. You could have a page for every unit in your course. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do banners. Okay? So what we're all working on together is eventually what we'd like to do is to make something, right, similar to this, right? So that when students get into the course, they see this nice page. And you'll notice that this one, right, you've got this banner, you've got an introduction, and then you've got this little start here, right? So it's, right, here's our introduction to the course. What are the next things you need to do? So when they walk in, everything's here, and you'll see that you don't need to scroll it all. You can see it all on the page. And they know that the first thing they need to do is the welcome discussion, right? There's a little how to be successful, right? I repeated them over here just because I was putting this together very quickly the other day. But what we want to go for right now is banner, right, to make it look nice, and then the text that you have for your welcome. So what we're going to do now is to go outside of Canvas, and we're going to build a banner. So this is going to be sort of a 2-step process. The first thing we need to do is to find the image we're going to use for the background. And what we're going to do is we're going to use something called Creative Commons Search. It's something I like to tell everybody about because I try to get all of my students, right now you're my students, right? I try to get all of my students to respect intellectual property and not go out and use Google search in order to find an image, but to find an image that you can use for educational purposes, okay? When you go out to find that image, what you're going to be looking for is an image that represents your course, right? Of course, your course, you could have a theme of journeys, right? So you might have an image that has something to do with journeys. But you also want to look for an image that doesn't have a sharp contrast to it. So if there's an image that was black and white, for instance, but like a solid black and white, you'd have trouble putting text on top of that you'd be able to read legibly. So you want to make sure that you have a fairly uniform contrast to that image, right? So we're going to first go out and find an image. Then we're going to go into something called Picmonkey, and we're going to edit it. So I'm going to type in Creative Commons search. And you'll see here that with Creative Commons, you can check off use for commercial purposes, modify, adapt, or build upon. We're not using it for commercial purposes, so by unchecking that, we're going to broaden our search. More images will be available to us. But we are going to modify the image and build upon it. And I'm going to type in something like beach. You might want to do flowers. You might want to do, whatever makes sense for you. The image that I had for hybrid course design, those are actually images of all different types of hybrids, right? A hybrid plant, a hybrid bike, a hybrid car, right? Oh, I was in clip art. I didn't want to be in clip art. I want to go back. So when you put in your search term, you want to click on one of these repositories. So I'm going to click on Flickr, right? And then I'm going to search. And you'll see at the top, it now says, right, it's sorting by relevant, it's searching everyone's photos, and the license is Creative Commons. Flickr actually has this built in now, but I still start with the Creative Commons search because if I was searching for video, I might search a different repository. And these computers can be slow, so you may want to refresh it. There we go. So as you're looking at the images, again, you're looking for something that, can I take a slice? There'd be fairly uniform contrast. This is actually kind of nice. It's more or less a uniform contrast. And if I were to slice it right here, right, I'd have a nice banner that would look like a beach, right? So I'm going to do it first. And if you're not used to downloading from Flickr, you can see how I do it, and then give you time to find an image. So I'm going to click on that. And then if I go over to the right-hand side to download this photo, I can view all sizes, or I can go in and say, I'm going to use the large size. Oops, it just downloaded it. So just for this, I'm going to say view all sizes. And hopefully it'll take me out. There we go. So if you view all sizes, you can then see, right, whose image this is. They have some rights reserved, which is normal. Usually they say you can use this, but cite me. And then I would have a page in my course where I cite the images that I use, just to set a good example for my students. When I'm looking for an image, I want to find one that's 800 to 1,000 pixels wide, or I want to use 1,000 pixels of it to make sure it covers the entire Canvas course. So 1,000 pixels wide. And then what I'm going to do is, when we go in to crop it, we're going to crop it to roughly 150 pixels. So this is the image that I want to use. And so I'm going to download, right, the large size. So one of the things you'll notice that I do is I have tabs open, and I keep tabs open, right? So as I'm working, and a lot of my work is on the web, see if I click on this small tab to the right, it opens up a new tab, and that allows me to go back and forth. So if I make a mistake or decide to change something, I can test it out, right? I can go into my Canvas course, upload it, test it out, go back, find another image, right, and edit it again and put it up. So tab browsing is something that's extremely useful if you don't use that. So I've opened up a new tab, and what I'm going to do is go to Picmonkey. We used to use Picnic, but Picnic doesn't, it's not in existence anymore. So Picmonkey is nice. It's very simple, very down and dirty. You can use it without logging in, which is one of the reasons we like to use it in workshops. You can quickly crop something, make some quick edits to it, add some text to it. Of course, if you have access to Photoshop and you know how to use that, or you have GIMP, those work really, really well. So go ahead and use those. This is just really useful in workshops or for people who haven't done editing before. So the nice thing about this is all you do is you go in and you click on Edit. And as soon as you click on Edit, it says, OK, what do you want me to edit? And it pulls up the window where you pull something off of your computer. I'm in the Download section, and it automatically opened there. Your pictures might be in the Picture section down here on your computer. Either place, find your image, and open it up. So where this opens up, there's several tools down along the side. The first are basic editing tools. This is actually what looks like a crop tool. That's where we're going to start, and crop is what we're going to do. Then we have effects. I forget what that one is. Then we have the titles. And really what we're going to do today is crop and titles, and that's about all we're going to do. There are other tools that are available to you in Picmonkey. Picmonkey has this free version, and then it has a paid version, and that's it. If you use one of the tools that's only for the paid version, it lets you do that, and then it puts a picture of a monkey in your picture. It's a little like icon. So, but it warns you. It says, "Up, you're using a, pro version." It's not quite what it says. So you're going to have this icon on your picture, and you can just undo and choose something else. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and crop, and as soon as we click on crop, what happens is you get a bounding box, right, to show up within your image. So I'm going to choose a section that looks like beach, lets the students know this is beach, but at the same time gives me a nice, more or less even contrast to write on. So I know that if I use a dark font and write it along here, right, I'll be able to write what I want to write on the banner. The other thing that I'm looking at is the size here, right? So the size says that right now the box I've drawn is 1024 by 148. Now I want to make sure that this part, it does give me a sense of this is how big it's going to look on my computer, but I don't generally like that to be over 150. I usually try for 150. I might go to 175, but I don't go larger than that. And one of the things that you get used to as you're doing design is that it's really stylish if you cut things up. So you don't worry about cutting somebody's face off or cutting through the middle of a wave. You notice I didn't drag it down to make sure I got all of the wave. Right? Good design tends to be that it just slices it. I don't know why. That just seems to be the rules. So find a section that you like. And as soon as you like that, you just click on Apply. Right? Now you can pull it in a little bit if you wanted to, make it not quite so wide. But then click Apply, and then you've got the background for your banner. Right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the letters, uppercase, lowercase t. Right? And then what you do is you choose a font that you'd like to use. Keep contrast in mind as you're doing this. Right? This is going to be for a banner. And notice that you can also, they have ours and yours. If you're on ours, you're using the fonts that are the Picmonkey fonts. If you click on yours, it gives you access to your system fonts. So you may have system fonts that you like to use, and so you can click on yours and get access to those system fonts. When you're ready, you click on Add Text. As soon as you click Add Text, you get a box that shows up again in the middle of your picture. I'm going to expand it so I can see it a bit better. And you get the text box. And the text box is fairly self-explanatory. Choosing the colors. Fade will make the text fade into the background. Not going to go over those. Size is normal. And then you have blend modes. And you can play with those. But what that does, again, is some of the text will fade into the background. Some will pop. And then you can flip it. You can make it upside down and backwards if you'd like to. If you ever do anything you don't like as you're editing, there is the undo and redo button at the top of the screen. One trick, just to show you, if you click, and this is a design trick, if you click on the color bar to the right, notice where my cursor is on the screen right here. If you click on that color bar, it changes to an eyedropper, and you can actually select a color from the picture. So see how the eyedropper changes? So you can choose a color from the picture. So if I wanted to choose the sand color, I could do that. Of course, that wouldn't make it stand out, but it's just a design trick if you want to choose a certain color.
It's just the sizing issues for the part of the scales of distance that I actually wanted to use. So I'm trying to figure out an image that actually works with that.
Do we go into 4:15? Is that what we said?
420.
Oh, 4:20. Okay.
How do I copy and paste this into my canvas?
So you haven't chosen your image yet?
No.
Okay, and we're going to move on to buttons pretty soon. So just to make sure you, as long as you're comfortable and you know how to do what we're doing. Okay, so remember, we're not creating if you manage to create what you'd like to use today, that's great, but just making sure you know how to use it. And I'm happy to help people out later on. So if you don't get to this and it's a couple weeks later and you can't remember some of the steps, feel free to call me, send me an email, stop by the CTI in Meyer Hall 115, and we've got a Carol where you can work. We have a nice round table where you can set up your laptop, and we're happy to help you out. A couple other little tricks. When you click on the text box, right, there's a little lollipop on the top, and you notice when I put the cursor over the lollipop, it changes into what looks kind of like the recycle sign. And if I click and hold, I can actually twist, right? I can twist the text. So if I wanted to, I could put it at a slant. Then my students would know that I'm really, really hip. Now, if you want to put in 2 layers of text, so you might want to have the name of the course in bold, but then you might want to have your office hours and your name slightly smaller. You can just go back and click on the text again, right? And another, really this happens, click on text, oh, add text. That's what I wasn't doing. Another box will show up. So now I have a second box, and now I can change, right, the size of the text and the color of the text in there, and just add another layer of text to the image. All right, so I'm going to jump ahead now. When you're all set, click on Save. When you save it, you do get one more chance to change the size of the image, but in this case what you're going to do is change the entire image, not just the background. Picmonkey uses lots of weird simian language for its menu items. I don't really know the monkeys named Roger, Pierce, and Sean. I'm sure there's some sort of literary or movie reference there that I'm missing. But good quality is fine for us. When we look at the size of the file down here, it's a really small file. Looks good, right? So that's fine. I do want to change the file name, and I do always put the word banner whenever I create a banner in it. So I normally call it something like hybrid course, right, underscore banner 2014. Right? So I usually put in the year, and I always make sure I say banner, so when I'm looking for it, I can find it easily. And then save it to my computer. Okay. Now I'm not going to close this tab, right? I'm going to leave this open. I'm going to go back into my page, and notice because I had the tabs open, I was able to simply click on the tab that had hybrid course design in it. I'm going to go into my page. Okay, and so remember, I'm going to click on Edit. I'm going to put the cursor at the very top of the page, so it's blinking up here. And I'm going to click on Image, Upload New Image, find my banner, and upload. Yeah. No, the text, once I hit Save, you're going to see Test 99 on top. And that's not part of the page that we can edit. That's part of Canvas's system. So that text, whatever the page is named, is always going to be on top. So the only thing you could potentially do is just reduce it to almost nothing, 1. So then if I hit Save, there's still going to be a 1 up there. Yeah, you can't. So far as I know, you really can't. Yeah. Because if I go into the HTML editor, you'll see that that 1 doesn't show up in here anywhere. It's not something I have any control over. That's all I promised you as part of this workshop. But, right, what we can do now is we can make some buttons, all right, or we can make a badge. It depends what you guys are really interested in. So I do use badges in my online courses and hybrid courses where they're doing online work, and I will award them badges on pages. So within Canvas, you know how you have groups? So I might give a group a badge, right, something they've earned. I also will assign students. I'll have groups of 1, so every student has their own area in Canvas. And then I might award them badges, right? And they're the only ones that can see the badges that they're getting, so it's not, public. And so that's something that you may or may not be interested in. Or we can do the buttons. And the way the buttons work is, right, if I click on them, they actually go to other pages, right, within the course. So the nice thing is, once you create this and put it in, what I did was just copy and paste. Once you do it for one page, you've got the buttons in your course, and you can just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste the entire, I just took the table, copied the table, and pasted it into the other pages. So I actually did a whole workshop on badges because I taught a course in which people earned badges in the course that would eventually turn into a grade. The badges were tied to points. But whenever they got, it was a writing course, which made it a lot easier. But when they got a paper back, they got badges. And the badges would be for clarity, citations, engaged writing, clarity of audience, voice, different things that I'd like to see within the paper. And so they'd get, depending on what they did well, they'd get awarded for those things. And then they'd get comments on the paper. But they wouldn't get a grade back. So the paper wouldn't say that it was a C paper, right, or a B paper, or an A paper. And then they could see the badges. They had a page where the badges were awarded, and they knew how many badges they could get, right? Because I had this big table saying, this is what you can get in this course, right? And so then the badges would add up, and they'd eventually get the grade, because it would add up to a certain number of points that they got. And it took them a while to get used to it. It was very different for them. It was very different for me. But about a third of the way into the course, they were all saying they really liked it because it was like they weren't getting this judgment on their paper that you're a B writer, right? They just got back, areas they could work on. And they said it allowed them to really focus on that more. And you can actually set up any course that way with like badges. I was just trying it out. Badges are something that some educational institutions are playing with, but playing with them at a global level. So, so you say, sort of like we have the new Gen Ed, and we have writing and quantitative and personal development, and they'd have badges that they award to students. Saying they've mastered the analytical essay, and they'd get a badge, and it could be assigned by a librarian or an ed teacher or an English teacher or anything, something like that. So badges can be about competency-based education, or badges can be just a really nice sticker, right, that you put inside a course, right? So. And then these buttons are just buttons that go to different areas of the course. So there's 2 tools, right? For buttons, we use a tool called the Button Factory, okay? And for badges, www.openbadges.me. So you guys like to do badges or buttons? How many people want to do buttons? 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half, 5 and a half. Okay, so we'll do buttons. All right, so I'm going to open up another tab, and we're going to go to the buttonfactory.com. All right, so this is your button in the middle of the screen. On this side of the screen, you're controlling your text. On this side of the screen, you're controlling your button, okay? And then when we're done with the button, we're going to download the button. We're going to download an image because we're putting it up in Canvas, okay? The other nice thing about this is this URL down on the bottom that says workspace. If you copy that URL, and what I do is I copy the URL and I paste it in a page in Canvas that my students can't see. What happened to my pages? There we go. View all pages. Right. So I've got a page in here that students can't see, and that was my workspace before in the Button Factory. And what happens is, if you click on that URL, right, it takes you back to your settings for your buttons. So if you decide you wanted another button that you hadn't created, you don't have to think or have written down anywhere which font was it, what size was it, what was the gradient I used, right? It takes you back to that workspace and you can create new buttons. Everybody follow that? Okay. So go ahead and type in whatever text you'd like to have in there. A lot of times people start with a home button, right? As soon as I click somewhere else, my button changes and says home. And then I can play with the font. There is a shadow in there, which you can't really see because it's so close to the text, but that's something that you can play with as well. Whoops. So once you have a button you like, one thing I would point out on this side, right, under size, I would suggest that you put the size to fixed, because what we're going to do is download the button. The one thing to take into consideration when you make it fixed size is that I know that home is not going to be my longest word, so I want to make sure that I've got space in here. So if I write like careers or success or a longer word, that it's going to fit in there and I don't have to shrink the font too much because I want to go for uniformity. But as you line up the buttons on the page, it just looks nicer to have a fixed size button. So I fixed the size at 150. I could have gone a little bigger than that, but that's what I did. So that's fixed. The other choices that you have on here are really just a matter of preference. But fixed size and the image output PNG is a really good, it's a nice small image. So when I'm all set, in the middle of the page next to where it says button, I'm going to click on download. I know mine has downloaded here. I saw the arrow. It downloaded into my download folder. At this point, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do another button. But all I have to do is type in the text. I'm not going to change the rest because you want the buttons on your page to be uniform. You don't want to create different looking buttons and have them all lined up on the page. It just looks really bad. So I typed in success and bam, my next button is ready, right? And I can click download. And then the last one I might do is instructor and download. Okay. And so now I should have 3 buttons downloaded and ready to go. So if you know what the buttons are you want ahead of time, you can do that. Remember, if you don't know and you're planning, grab your workspace URL, make sure you copy that, and paste it somewhere. So now I'm going to go back into my pages. Okay? And I'm going to go to the page that I was working on, which is now called 1. I almost forgot that. Okay. I'm going to click on Edit. Okay. Now, you remember that I have this table in here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in here above that image that I have. I'm going to try to anyway. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill that image so I can be inside that box. So I'm inside this area. And what I want to do is I want to put a table in there. So I'm going to click on Table. Oh, it's not going to let me do that. All right. I'm going to make the table, but I'm going to make it down below. And I'll drag it in later. Right. So I'm going to put in a table. And this time I want 1 column. I want 4 rows because I want to fit all my buttons. And this time I'm going to set the alignment. The alignment's going to be left, and the width is going to be 160. Okay? So 1 column, because I'm going to have a column of buttons, with 4 rows, a row for each one of my buttons. I'm going to line everything left. I'm making the width 10 pixels wider than my buttons because I want there to be a buffer before there's any text. Okay? And I'm going to say Insert. Okay? So there's my table. Now, I'm going to put in a button right now just to show you how it's done. I've got the cursor blinking in the top cell, right? So I'm going to put in the image. And you've done this before. Image, upload new image, choose a file, and upload. Okay, and you can do that for each one of your images. Click in the next cell, upload a new image, choose a file, so remember we tried before. I'm going to see if this works for me this time. Is I'm going to click on the actually I'm going to click on the Success button. And I'm going to click over on Links, and I'm going to click on my page, How to Be Successful in This Course, and it should glow yellow. I'm going to cross my fingers this time. And I'll see if it actually linked. So save, Oh, one of my images disappeared. Okay, so that worked. It actually went to the other page. Yay. But I did lose a button in the process.
And you got the
There it goes.
text to the other side of it by just typing?
Oh, so now what I'm going to do is I want to put where I really want this table to be is I want this table to be here. So now what I'm going to try to do is to highlight it and click and drag it and dump it there. And that worked. Okay. So now I've got the text on this side. And I can go backspace a little bit. And I've got the buttons on the other side. And if I had more text in here, it would fill up a bit more nicely. It centers automatically. If I filled this cell with text, it would move up. And if I add buttons, these will move up.